This is just the beginning.
Open error type it.
That's the world that we live in. Let me help you believe in what we can do when we stand united. We are one little world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light. Oh, let's shine our light. We won't listen to what they're saying. We know it's just love that we're giving. To this place that we call our home, we can change what's been done, but it's still our run. We are one little world. Wow, we can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's so light. We can step back from what we know is right. So let's shine.
कितने लोग आए हैं इसमें?
I will. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this super exciting session. I hope I am audible and that everybody can hear me. We have a huge group today, so I will start off by requesting those who aren't speaking to please mute themselves so we don't disturb any of our panelists. And if you have any questions or if you would like to raise, there is dedicated time for questions and answers. And there is also the chat box, which we encourage you to use as freely and as openly as you would like. Please do introduce yourself. We want this to be as interactive and collaborative as possible. For those of you who don't know about Catalyst 2030 and Catalyzing Change Week, I'm really excited to introduce it to you. Catalyst 2030 is the largest social innovator-led network, and it has global social innovators, over 4,000 of us, that are part of the family and collaborating to achieve the SDGs, whether it is SDG 4, quality education, or any of the others. And at Catalyzing Change Week, we really leverage this week to have social innovator-led movements, led events, and bring other stakeholders to the table, whether it is academics, whether it is policymakers, whether it is bilaterals and multilaterals. And I think this session on education, which is a conception of our education collaboration at Catalyst 2030, is a true manifestation of that. So I'm really, really happy to welcome everybody. I have a quick video to introduce the work of Catalyst and Catalyzing Change Week.
I'm Sanjoy Roy, the co-chair of the Catalyzing Change Week Programming Committee. Welcome to CCW 2024. This is where you'll meet social innovators, change makers, folks from government and from bilateral agencies. And of course, this is a place to look at best practices, share ideas and innovations, and enjoy networking with each other. Welcome to the session.
Super. Thank you. I hope everybody heard that. Again, a quick reminder, please mute yourself if you aren't speaking. And with that, I will hand over to Urvashi, who will take us through this session. Urvashi, give me 1 second to bring my slides back up. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining. Thank you very much for joining us and coming in such large numbers to talk about education. As we all know that the world is facing all kinds of global crises, the biggest one being the climate crisis, and then going on to global peace, which is in danger in many parts of the world. And also the rapidly advancing technology, which is also presenting its own crisis. never before have we had a more strident call for reimagining and transforming education. From all corners, the pandemic started it and it hasn't stopped. And the goal of this panel is we have a tremendous cast on our panel, from educators like Professor Fernando Rimas to policymakers and people from the government like Aurora Vergara, who's the Minister of National Education, Colombia, Isabel Abdul, who's a advisor to the ministry in Saudi Arabia, and Mr. Thavasilan, who is also working with the ministry, and social entrepreneurs. So I will be introducing them shortly. We have this great panel, and we hope that together we can provide, they have unique insights given all their long years of experience, and how they can come together to reimagine. Let's talk about the reimagining. How do you conceive of it? What education should be, where it is going, what's the future looking like, and also, most importantly, how we can all come together to transform education, because education, as we know, is a very powerful individual and social transformative force, and provided it is transformed. Quick introduction about me. I'm Urvashi Sani. I'm the co-chair of the Education Collaboration, which was founded in 2021. And I'm also the founder and the CEO of Study Hall Education Foundation. I live and work in India, and I've been working with education transformation for the last 40 years. And my co-chair, Rana Dajani, also a social entrepreneur of great standing, and she has founded and runs We Love Learning, and she will be taking the session later in the day. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists, after which I will give some opening remarks about the work of the Education Collaboration before I hand it over to them. So we have Professor Fernando Rimas, who is the Ford Foundation Professor of the Practice in International Education and Director of the Global Education Innovation Initiative at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. He also served on UNESCO's Commission on the Futures of Education that authored the report, Reimagining Our Futures Together, a New Social Contract for Education. He was the founding director of the International Education Policy Master's Program, a program at the Harvard Graduate School of Education that supported the development of leaders of systemic efforts to enhance the quality and relevance of education around the world. He wears many hats and a very distinguished thinker, educator, and thinker of education, and inspired many innovation in education all over the world. We also have Aurora Vergara Figueroa. She is currently the Minister of Education in Colombia. She's a sociologist and academic who's been a tenured professor in the Department of Social Studies at the ICC University and director of the Center for Afro-Diasporic Studies. She was appointed to be part of the transition team of the Gustavo Petro government, along with others, and currently the Minister of National Education, Colombia. Welcome, Aurora. We have Isabel Abulhoul, OBE. She's a renowned cultural leader in the UAE. She currently serves as the advisor and trustee on the board of Emirates Literature Foundation, is also a trustee of the International Prize for Arabic Fiction, member of the Police Advisory Council for Community Service, a director of the board for the Mohammed bin Rashid Library, and chairperson for one of the UN Global Councils focused on SDGs in the UAE. We have with us, I'm hoping he's joined, Thavasilan K, who's an engineering graduate and alumnus from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad, an Indian Administrative Service Officer, batch of 2012, and currently serving as the Principal Director in the Ministry of Education, Nagaland. In his current role, he has been leading the state's World Bank project, leading school transformation, curricular reforms, implementing teacher attendance monitoring system, and performance incentive grants for schools as some of the initiatives. And under his leadership, Nagaland was one of the top 5 performing states in the Vidya Amrit Mahotsav, a festival of innovative pedagogy for teachers and school leaders by NCERT. Shruti Fauzdar, a social entrepreneur. She has worked with mentor teachers for social science pedagogy in Delhi, post her master's in education from Azim Premji University. She currently works senior lead programs at Shiksha Lokam, where she's been working with the micro improvement programs in Nagaland. And finally, Farha Nisa, who is an advocate for women empowerment, an entrepreneur and a journalist. She's the expansion director of Ed Heroes Network, and she has successfully rallied over 150,000 people to join the Ed Heroes campaign, aiming to provide access to quality education worldwide. Alongside her team, she achieved further success by opening hubs in several countries. And she gained recognition as Puteri Indonesia Favorite 2015. Congratulations. And in 2017, she joined CNN Indonesia as news anchor. So as you can see, we have a wide range of people on our panel, and we can't wait to hear from them. But before that, let me quickly dive into the work of our education collaboration. We believe at Catalyst 2030 that collaboration with social entrepreneurs and with governments is a very important way to take the SDGs forward. So in 2021, we formed this education collaborative group. And in 2022, we decided to co-create a report that outlines the principles of transforming education. We launched it in September at the UN Transforming Education Summit in September 2022. And after feedback from governments that we presented it to, and from our co-social entrepreneurs, we came up with the second version in the form of a toolkit for social entrepreneurs, guiding them how you might work with governments and with each other. We launched it this year, January 24th. And now our goal is to take it to 50 ministries in 50 governments and have them use the principles and the innovations that we have showcased to take the work forward. Just a quick word about the report. If you could please mute. Okay, so we have, as you know, that we have, in all the conversation around education has broadened. And in the same spirit, together, we came up with this definition, where we feel that given the rapidly changing future, the purpose of education must enable people and societies and the planet to thrive. And we've tried to give a very broad and comprehensive education as one enabling the learning of the knowledge, skills, and values needed to live a life of personal flourishing and the capacity to shape the future with a deep sense of caring, connectedness with the universe and everyone in it. We came up with a set of 8 principles. And the goal of this is to inspire governments and all the stakeholders to work together in the whole project of transforming education. Mishri, if you'll give us the slide. I want to quickly run through the next one, please. The principles of education, the 8 principles that we worked on. We believe that learning should be learner-centric and it should be lifelong. That it should include skills for life, which means life skills and social emotional well-being. We should include learning for living, for livelihoods in it. And it should focus on social justice, gender equality, racism, all the inequalities that we are facing, and how students can learn to grapple with these ideas and be transformative forces. It should be the whole top-down model, one teacher, one classroom, should change to a community-based learning model where we think in terms of learning teams. And of course, we should be thinking of planetary change and teaching our children how to adapt to it and how also to change the way we live for it. And the learning for civic participation, democracy is in crisis in many parts of the world. And how do you deal with it? These are our future citizens. To talk about accessible and inclusive learning for children with different needs and learning in conflict zones. And our goal is to integrate these learning to get to influence policymakers and other social entrepreneurs to integrate these learning principles in formal school curricula and facilitate systemic implementation. Next, Mishri. The toolkit, on the other hand, is one that's meant to be a starting point for a collective journey to transform education together. And we acknowledge that there are multiple pathways And education should be locally rooted but globally informed. And system leaders can use this toolkit for personal reflection, but more importantly, for team or network conversations in their jurisdictions. It's divided in 3 sections, if you just move. Section 1, Mishi, it provides direction on how to ask the question together. What is your vision for education? How to share your vision of education with other stakeholders, listen to theirs, see how they are aligned with their national visions and those of the UN Secretary General's vision, with the hope of building a collective one. Section 2 asks the question, with whom will you work to achieve these visions and advance your vision of education? Thus, concretely listing the stakeholders, communities, teachers, social entrepreneurs, governments you can work with the hope that this will sow the seeds of building a collective leadership in education. That is the learning ecosystem. And section 3 asks the question, what will you do together? Identifying the strengths and challenges of the various stakeholders that plans out how they will work together. This is our contribution, and we are now working with governments. We've already begun the work in our chapters in India, in Brazil, and various parts of the world. And we are hoping our goal is in the next 5 years to take it to 50 countries. I welcome the panel once again and all our audience, and I want to turn it over now to our distinguished panel so that we can start thinking together, hoping to reflect on some of the conversations that have gone past globally and also drawing on their insights. So may we start with Professor Fernando Reimers. Professor, you have been on various global fora and visions, and you've been at the forefront of reimagining education. So we would love to hear your insights, your reflections from your experience working with social innovators, from your experience working with governments, advising institutions like UNESCO on what you think about the transformation of education, what form it should take, and what's the pathway going forward.
Thank you so very much, Urvashi. I'm delighted to be with you and with my other colleagues on this panel. I would like to share my slides, if I could, to support my presentation. Are you able to see them right now?
Yes.
And I'd like to begin inviting you all to watch this wonderful recent documentary from Netflix on the Neanderthals, our relatives who roamed the earth 130,000 to 40,000 years ago. It's a wonderful documentary because it shows how early humans, I mean, these are our cousins of Homo sapiens, began to develop culture, but also how they disappear for reasons we don't understand around 40,000. So this is both a hopeful story and a cautionary tale that nothing assures that we as a species are going to remain on the earth. But I want to begin with the good news. The good news are, if you look at the timeline of human evolution, or even something more recent, a timeline of the history of writing, you realize that this is a relatively recent history. We begin to write maybe 5,000 years ago. And I emphasize writing because I think that this process that allows us to make our thoughts visible is a process that helps us augment our capacity to understand the world and to change the world. The notion that everyone should have access to the opportunity to develop those skills, the skills to read and to write, is actually very recent. We've had educational institutions in the world for centuries, but the aspiration to educate everyone is only 500 years old. And it's 500 years old because a man who lived through a time of tremendous religious intolerance, Jan Comenius, looked back at the 30-year religious war that had displaced him, turned him into a refugee, and asked, why do we do these things to one another? And he said, we do that because we don't have the skills to work out our differences in peaceful ways. And Comenius becomes thus the father of the idea of universal education. But that idea doesn't become a reality until very, very recently, 8 decades ago, when humanity develops one of the most ambitious ideas, which is that every member of our species has, by virtue of the fact that they're human, certain rights, and that we have the obligation to one another to collaborate in the achievement of those rights. And that short document that has 30 rights includes one, the right of education. And that changes the history of humanity, because at that moment, when the Declaration is adopted in 1948, and there are 2.4 billion humans on the earth, only 2 in 5 have ever set foot in a school. And today, when there are 8 billion humans, 95% of them have not only accessed school, but spend a considerable period of their lives in schools. And this is the result of collective leadership. This is not the result of an act of imagination, of setting the goal, but it's the result of many different groups, organizations of civil society, governments coming together in making that right a reality. So the challenge for us is to now take that infrastructure and to build on those achievements and to make that reality, the reality that most students set foot in a school, an opportunity to develop their whole potential, the whole of humanity. And I want to encourage you to look at this document in its history. UNESCO, which is the UN agency created to help advance the right to education, has 3 times put together a commission of independent specialists to look at the way the world is going and to suggest what should we do. And this was the last time it did, in a commission chaired by the current president of Ethiopia, Madame Saleh Zewde. And what this document does is basically an invitation to think anew about education. It's an invitation to think anew. The report has 3 sections. The first part says, what are the biggest challenges of humanity? And it talks about climate change, the challenges to human rights, violence, democratic backsliding, and the challenges that the development of AI is going to create. The second part of the report says, how do we reimagine the culture of education, or share ideas about what it means to learn and to teach, to what end, and how do we support that? And then lastly says, what are the catalytic actions that can help us achieve that? And then it basically does something unprecedented in the history of these reports. It says, if this is going to be achieved, it is going to depend not on governments, it is going to depend on all of us, on the full 8 billion members of our species coming together to have conversations locally in communities where we ask, what is it that we should teach our children so that we can address these challenges, so we can help them develop the competencies both to understand the challenges as well as to have the skills to care about them and to do something about them and to collaborate for the purpose of doing them. So in that context, I'm very pleased with the work of Catalyst, because you're modeling exactly what the Commission had in mind when it said, let's actually have these conversations where we begin with mutual recognition and where we figure out how do we collaborate at the local level. And what I hope your Catalyst 2030 is modeling is what needs to be done not only at the global level, but at the local level, where different organizations would map the existing institutions that can collaborate for the purpose of educating whole children. So I want to conclude with just 5 ideas about what would it mean to educate whole children. The first one is that our opportunity, building on that infrastructure that has been built over the last 8 decades, I want to underscore this is a relatively recent time in human history. We should not despair that there are so many education challenges, because frankly, we haven't been trying for very long to educate our children. And the fact that we have provided most of them access is a remarkable achievement indeed. But we have the opportunity to build on that and actually provide all students the opportunity to develop their full potential, not to approach the inclusion of all children with a poverty of aspirations that says, oh, poor children should only learn 1 or 2 things, but with the notion that those environments should give these students the opportunity to develop the full range of skills, of dispositions that make them human. Now, to do that, we need to make visible for students how what they're learning in school connects with what happens outside of school. We need to make education relevant. That doesn't mean we should preach to them about climate change or about the SDGs. It should mean we need to find a way to translate those goals into experiences that students can engage in at the local level that help them see the point of their education. To do that, we need clear goals, and the SDGs are a good framework to do that. It is going to be absolutely essential that we think differently about how do we support teachers. We need to reinvent the teaching profession and how we support teachers so that they can be up to the task of educating whole children. And we're going to have to think about providing the supports that can scaffold that kind of change at scale. And to do that, the most important thing we need to do is to be able to see the world through the eyes of others. Just a word on each one of them. Making education relevant. And so making education level relevant is about developing the whole child, not just their cognition, their social, emotional, physical development. There are many ways to do that. Classroom libraries, school libraries are a way to do that. With one of my colleagues who serve on the Commission of the Futures of Education, we asked, how do we turn this into a conversation that engages everybody? And we wrote a children's book that has a simple goal: to develop the curiosity and to open the imagination of children about trees. So they don't see humans as the center of the universe. So they recognize that we share our ecosystem with these other beings, these trees, who've been around much longer than we have. And this book ends with a discussion guide that has the simple goal of fostering intergenerational conversation between children and grandparents and adults. These are other children's books that I have written that have exactly the same goal. I don't have time to stay on them. The SDGs provide a window for us to reimagine those experiences, whether those experiences are promoting arts in school, promoting sports in school, promoting project-based science education, promoting school libraries, promoting writing context. So it isn't about teaching kids to recognize the goals. It's about organizing a curriculum around them. And here are 3 books in which I've done that with my collaborators. I've taken the SDGs, translated them into a set of competencies that high school students should have to understand these goals, to have the capacity to advance them, and then translated them into a scope and sequence that take a student from kindergarten to high school. To do that, we need professional development. And the good news is we don't need to invent it. There are very good experiences around the world on how to support teachers to do that. And here are just 2 studies of that. And then the most important thing we're going to need to do this for every child, not for a few of them, is to build the scaffolds, the systems that can support entire education systems in building the collaborations that augment the capacity of the schools. Schools are very small institutions to be up to the challenges that the Commission on the Futures of Education sets out for them, but they can do that in partnership with others. And I'll conclude presenting a book that offers a framework for how education leaders, by which we mean everyone from the local level to other levels, can facilitate the collective leadership that is at the goal of this initiative by developing the capacity to see the world through the eyes of others through 5 perspectives: a cultural, psychological, professional, institutional, and political perspective. I'll stop here. My goal has been to be provocative. I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Professor Reimers. That was very insightful, and I think all points well taken. I'm going to move on to, and I'm sure there are many questions and comments, which please hold them till the end. And I'm moving on to you, Minister from Colombia. And my question to you is that, from your experience, collaborating with other social entrepreneurs, collaborating with people in your ministry and with the people of your country, what have been your pains and your struggles and your successes? And most importantly, what is your advice to other governments as well? Over to you, Professor.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. It is an honor to be a part of this conversation. And it is an honor for me as Colombia's first Afro-descendant Minister of National Education to attend the Catalyst Change Week global event. I thank everyone involved in the organization of this event. I would like to highlight Ms. Ray Jane, Catalyst 2030 Collaborations Coordinator, Urbashi Shaney, Founder and Chief Executive of Study Hall Educational Foundation, also Claudia Lopez, former Mayor of Bogota, and Harvard Alley Leadership Fellow 2024, for extending me the invitation to participate. And I would also like to extend kind regards to the Minister of Education and Mrs. Isabel Abujo, who will intervene later, and to every speaker of this event. I would like to acknowledge that all protocols are observed and that I am very thankful to be a part of this conversation. I would like to briefly share with you how we are advancing the Colombian program to transform education. And to answer your question, I would like to just briefly share with you the faces and also the experiences of many people who so far have been able to help us bring in the Colombian context the premise of our program. We are working towards making the restoration of dignity the foundation of our program. Achieving a transcendental social and cultural change in our country with the participation of social society through education, through that main premise, to restore the dignity of our nation, to heal our nation, and to overcome inequalities caused mainly by over 60 years of the armed conflict. That's what is at stake when we are making public policy in education in our country. We are working towards the quality of education to transform it as a main force to overcome inequality. Making public education free, the gratuity of education, and also introducing the diverse perspective of different cultural groups in our country is allowing us to acknowledge the traditional knowledge of different ethnic people, dignifying the work of teachers, and also closing existing gaps in access to education and peasant, rural, and isolated vulnerable territories. One of the main changes that we introduced over a year ago in the system was to increase the funding for education, so that we moved in over 12 months from funding the sector with 50 billion pesos to over 70 billion pesos. That was a decision that our President Gustavo Petro made, and that I ensured that we were able to receive the funding so that the main foundation, having more children in the schools, having more young people in the universities, and dignifying teachers' places to work and their working conditions was one of our main goals for this year. Currently, we are also promoting a bill in Congress that seeks to regulate education as a fundamental right at all levels. So one of our entry actions is increasing funding, and the second action is to make sure that we have laws that will allow us to make a lasting impact. Today, in our Colombian Constitution, we are allowed to take care of children mandatory between 8 and 15 years of age. With this bill, we are trying to expand the scope to include 3 grades in preschool and to guarantee a complete educational trajectory of children, teenagers, and young people. One of the main challenges that we are facing is that we lose 50% of young people just when they are 2 years from finishing school. So that with this change, we are hoping to help them to reach higher education and to promote their comprehensive development from respect and appreciation of their diversity, but also within the framework of the rights and the gender approach. This law seeks to offer opportunities for participation to different populations. And if this will help me to share, I will just quickly go to show you how we are making this change in some particular rural areas. So just confirm if you can just take a quick look at the presentation that I'm about to share. So restoring the dignity of education is our main goal to the future of education. And the children that are helping us to do this are those such as this one that you are seeing right here. These young people were able to receive last year the award for the best school education, best school in the world for their climate activities, the pedagogical activities to achieve climate change. With the help of their professors, and Professor Reimers, you know very well this case, they are able to transform the residues of coffee plantations so that students can create beautiful pieces. Also, they can help their parents and everyone in their surroundings to create new venues for change. We are also making changes in the rural areas for Afro-descendant students who are claiming for peace, and the photo that you're taking a look at now are very young children asking so that they are not taken into the war and their schools are places of peace. And here this very young girl is signing an agreement that she will not allow anybody to take her and their students in the schools to the war. And they are screaming for peace, and we are funding every program that they are developing so that they can have the opportunities that they are looking forward. And to conclude, we are also bringing into all these schools funding and new ideas so that they can face the challenges that we can see when the PISA results come and when they are published. We know what are their strengths, but also what are the areas of improvement. And one of the base and the main improvements that we are bringing into these schools is that children such as this one that are in the rural areas that have zero opportunities to improve the life conditions have better infrastructure. We are now improving close to 20,000 schools all across the country, collaborating with the private sector and also with philanthropy so that they can have schools that can answer the challenges of the global climate crisis, but also have better opportunities to restore the dignity. Thank you.
Urvashi, you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you so much. We loved that presentation and loved seeing your children, and thank you for bringing them to us and to our audience. I'm going to move on, and my request to all speakers, please, that so that we can have time for everyone, if you'll keep your remarks within time. So Isabel Abulhoul, I have the same question for you in the context of UAE. What has been your experience working with social entrepreneurs, and what's your advice to your government?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Urvashi, and thank Dr. Rana for inviting me to this wonderful forum. I've really been fascinated listening to you and also Fernando and Aurora on what you're doing and bringing this global collection of people who care passionately about education in particular. So I've lived in Dubai since 1968, more than 56 years of my life has been here. And I came from Cambridge, United Kingdom, a very different environment to where I came. And I loved everything. The only thing I was missing were books, because there were no bookshops, there was no room. It was, you know, traditionally people had been Bedu or fisher, then there was no room in houses. So I've spent my whole adult life, I taught in an infant school here, but I also have spent my life trying to inculcate a love of reading. So sort of fast forward, my husband and I co-founded a chain of bookshops, which had educational toys, and then I published children's book, and then founded the Emirates Festival of Literature to bring a joy of reading, and finally the Emirates Literature Foundation. And so all of these have got one goal really, which is to focus on education. I was then asked to form and chair a global council, and Dr. Rana Dajani is one of my esteemed members on this council, here as part of the UAE's vision of looking at the Sustainable Development Goals. I chose a nexus model of quality education, reduced inequalities, and partnerships. The most important has been partnerships, because it's all very well to have ideas and to have wishes, but without partners, without others joining hands with you, you are going nowhere. And so we started the Reading for Pleasure initiative. It's a 5-year initiative happening in the UAE. It's 6 schools. It's from kindergarten age 4 to 11. And these pilot schools, we have a specialist team who are in there observing and interacting with the triangle of the students, the parents, and the teachers, because this is the triangle that matters. Students have opinions. We need to hear their voices. Teachers, are we giving them, are we empowering them to do their job properly? and then also parents, because until parents understand their importance in education, which starts the moment a child is born, we're not going anywhere. It is not the school's job just to educate children, it is parents as well. So we have been in these schools 2 days a week during term time for more than a year now. We've made interventions. So we have enriched the school libraries and made them inviting places so that when children visit, but I would say the most valuable thing we've done is to put in classroom libraries in 236 libraries in each classroom now. Children have access to books at any time. And the mix, most of the children are dual language learners. So it's 50% English, 50% Arabic, and also between fiction, non-fiction. And it's chosen, every book is chosen for its interest level and entertainment. We are not saying to a child, whether you read or not, you are welcome to sit here and pull up any book you want. It's your choice. So we're giving children choice. We have regular visits of authors, children's authors, to all of the 6 schools. And the children absolutely love it to see a children's author come in and read their story. A lot of the authors we choose are great performers too, and they get a chance to get a copy of the book and get it signed by the author. And one little girl of 5, she hugged this book and she said, "I'm taking this home. This is my first book for my own library." And it meant so much to her. So we are there observing everything. And we are, for the winter term, we put in gardens. We've involved parents and the children and the teachers growing vegetables and herbs and things like that. It's also cooler. We can sit outside and read. And this term, we're introducing cookery, because I think cookery is a way to anyone's heart. And which child doesn't like cooking? So we're doing all of these things, but with an eye on education and with an eye on the vital necessity of our children being literate. And by literate, I mean not just being able to read, but being a good reader who can then navigate the world ahead. Because without that, yes, sorry, Avashi.
Isabel, I need to wrap. Please, could you wrap up?
Thank
We're
you.
running
Yes, of
time.
course.
Okay.
So really, it's been, the last thing I'll just say is that we have university researchers who are following us and conducting all the scientific research. So at the end of 5 years, we should have research that we can share with the world. If this works, then it can be replicated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isabel. And thank you for bringing in the students and the parents and tying it back to what Professor Fernando said, that we really need everybody. It is everybody's task, not just government, not just social, students, teachers, parents, and to build learning teams really to be delivering it. With this, I want to invite Thava Seelam K, the Principal Director of Education, Nagaland. And I must request everyone to please keep time, because we are going to run out of time very quickly. We're already very close to finishing. So please, Minister, Director.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It's an incredible honor to talk to this esteemed group. We specifically wanted to talk about how we've been using micro improvements approach to improve education in our state. So Nagaland, I work in a state called Nagaland. This is one of the states in the northeastern part of the country. So we've been for the past year experimenting the use of micro improvements in improving learning outcomes in schools. So, I mean, the approach is very simple. There's something that the central government is also sort of, union government has tried to pilot across the country. And we're one of the pioneer states in terms of being able to pilot this approach in schools and we've been able to see tangible results. So the idea is very simple. So every system is unique, and the problems are going to be unique. So your solutions are also not have to necessarily be different. I mean, it can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. So what is essentially happening in this is the school heads, the folks who run the schools, and alongside the teachers and the community members, they're the ones who best suited, who know what the problems in the school are, and So the idea is to use whatever resources you have and whatever the situation you have, whatever be the situation of the school at this point in time. How do you, improve things with whatever you got at hand, without any external intervention, without any help from the central government or the federal government. So what we've been trying to do is the focus has been on two main aspects. One is improving the literacy, and the other is improving numeracy. So last year we've had a couple of festivals. These have been statewide festivals. So one has been the Nagaland Reading Festival, and another is Nagaland Literacy and Numeracy Fest. So basically, teachers are expected to submit projects which address the unique. They're expected to take up projects which address the unique problems of the students in their particular school with whatever resources they have at hand. So we've had multiple success cases in both these festivals. So for the reading festival, so it's basically to improve their reading skills. It was implemented over a period of 3 months, and what we seen was the teachers had come up with several innovative solutions to generate interest in reading. The teachers, helped students comprehend readings through games. There were read-alouds, there were vocabulary exercises, and all these were submitted on a central portal. And the district-wise evaluations. So district is a smaller unit of a state. So the district-wise submissions were evaluated, and the best ones at the state level were then chosen and replicated across the state. Similarly, for when we talked about numeracy, there were similar exercises to help kids spark their interest in math. So that was something that was also taken up across the state. So this is something that we found has been extremely effective in sort of giving agency to the people in the schools and trusting them to do the right things, because they know their situation the best, and given enough freedom and agency and opportunities and guidance, they'll be able to come up with unique solutions to address the problems of the kids in their school. So that has been the crux of what we've been doing here, and this worked incredibly well, and we hope to extend it across multiple other initiatives in the years to come. So I think I rest my case there, and over to Madam Urvashi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thavasila. I hope I'm getting the name right. And it's amazing. Nagaland is very difficult territory, and it's amazing, all the work that's going on there. Quickly moving on to Farhanisa, but before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to Olivier Brechard. He's there. He was our former co-chair. And in fact, when the report was being produced, you'll see his name in the foreword. Hi, Olivier, and thanks for all your comments in the chat. So Farhanisa, again, from the social entrepreneur's perspective, if you will talk about your pains and pleasures as you've been going on your journey working with governments, and also specifically your advice to other social entrepreneurs on how to work with governments, please, and with other stakeholders.
Of course. Thank you very much, Urvashi. Good afternoon from Jakarta, Indonesia, everyone. Thank you so much, Catalyst 2030, Urvashi, Ministry, for having me, distinguished speakers. My name is Farhanisa. I'm the Expansion Director of EdHeroes. Today, I would like to share my screen, if it's allowed. So I would like to take us back a little bit more on how the journey is began with EdHeroes. So can anybody see my screen? Yeah. Okay. So to talk about EdHeroes, we are going to talk about a little bit before the pandemic. So it was 2021, where pandemic emerged, and it affects our daily lives in a lot of aspects, including education, the way we communicate. And those challenges are not happening just in one country, but also in various countries, especially in global realm of education. So we see this as an opportunity to help people, because EdHeroes is a decentralized network that unites people and organizations within education to achieve United Nations SDG number 4, which is the quality education. It's about connecting, communicating, and speeding up education processes and projects. Because we were born in the pandemic, so at that time, our focus was mainly about supporting families' education from all around the world. And now it expands to a broader spectrum of education, such as sustainability, inclusive learning, talent matchmaking, indigenous communities, globalization, and more. Our approach is based on the concept of locality. It is a global vision with a strong respect for local organizations and individuals, because we believe that we won't be able to understand the educational issues of a given community better than the communities themselves. Thus, we partner with local organizations to address them. And the mission is to improve the access to and the quality of education for people of all ages. We establish partnerships with community leaders and organizations to catalyze the project, raise awareness, and expand their reach with the goal of making lasting improvements of education. So these are our main activities. We have at Heroes Hubs, collaborative events, at Heroes Forums, certification, and leadership program. And we are going to talk about our 13 hubs, because this is where we set everything up in collaboration with trustworthy local partners of organization that consistently advocates and takes action to improve education. So far, we have 13 hubs worldwide, including Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Myanmar, Peru. It's all on the slide. But the challenges that we face, especially when it comes to education, is that every country faces different challenges, and therefore we need all of the stakeholders, not only the governments but also us as a social and society. We need to go hand in hand, in order to make education better and to act as an ecosystem, because one effort is one thing, but a collective effort is everything when it comes to make education better. So far, we have 120 plus projects and 25 forums within our 2 years of establishment. And about the projects, the first one I would like to talk about the Girls Camp in Yogyakarta, because it is one of our projects that includes the local authorities and education, to be exact, the Department of Education and Culture of the Special Region of Yogyakarta and the Royal Yogyakarta Palace. At that time, we gathered 20 representatives of junior high school female students from across Yogyakarta for a 2-day training session where they learn about soft skills such as public speaking, leadership, and a discussion, because they did an FGD, a focus group discussions, and we asked them to determine what problems do they face as a girl, as a young lady, when it comes to get access to education. And the answer is pretty shocking, because even in Yogyakarta is not a remote province in Indonesia. It's one of the most advanced province, but we still see young girls cannot get the chance to education because the society told them not to, because the society thought that they should be, at certain age after they adults, they should be marrying someone and, just act within the boundaries that that society has created. So this is where we step in and we ask them to go for their dream to, achieve education and be the best version that they can be. And the second one is the collaborative events that we have done with our hubs in Malaysia, for example. Our hub partner in Malaysia, Infinite Minds Academy, provides digital learning courses designed for children with special needs. And our Peruvian hub, Amantani, is dedicated to empowering girls, young women, and adult women to fulfill their educational career objective. And the last one is it was last year, December last year, it's the Futurist Summit, where we extended invitations to the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs of Republic Indonesia and His Highness Mangkunagaran, the King of Mangkunagaran, to together address a session focusing on future talent, where we talk about how to prepare the human fit for our imagined future. And
so,
this is
Farhanisa, I'm going to have to ask you to please wrap up, because we have Shruti left. So,
yeah,
sure. So if we can stop this.
Of course.
Thank you so
Of course,
much.
Urvashi. Of course, Urvashi. This is going to be my last slide because the upcoming events that we have, we are going to organize a 24 hours where the participants are from all around the world, where we talk about inclusive learning, globalization, and everything. And this is where we hope that this is going to be a big contribution, hopefully, to invent the new paradigm that education is for all. And with everyone, we are getting closer to put the impossible out of the equation because each one of you is a net hero. So thank you very much for me. Back to you, Urvashi.
Thank you, Farhanisa. Thank you very much. Shruti, please, in fact, I'm so sorry, but for jumping it, I thought you were you were with the director of Nagaland. Please go ahead. You
No
have
worries,
2
miss.
minutes.
Yes, I am with Mr. Tavasilan. I'll just quickly present, and he has already talked about how the approach has shown significant impact in the state of Nagaland. I'll talk about how the approach, why the approach has been beneficial, and how have we been designing these projects that he was talking about. So the entire idea has been within the micro improvement approach and how we have used it for FLN and Nagaland to break down the larger literacy and numeracy goals into smaller actionable steps. Just a +1 thing that the teachers and school heads are going to do in their schools. The 3 major things that we have kept in mind. One is design for simplicity. This meant we're looking at very, very basic practices that the teachers and school leaders can lead in their schools. A simple example would be that a teacher is teaching reading fluency in English language in a state where there are more than 17 plus tribal languages. What would it mean for a teacher to assess whether a child is speaking English as a language properly? And how can the teacher support the child, each and every child in the classroom? What is that +1 action that they need to take? So that's the lens that we are keeping and designing. The other lens that we keep is designing for agency, where we're thinking, and as Tavasilan sir already pointed out, that one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. But we wouldn't know what every teacher's context is. So how are we giving them the agency, even though we are sort of asking them to say, for example, focus on reading fluency, but how can teachers customize and modify it based on the rigor of and the needs of the students in their class? So the pictures here are of actually teaching addition, and you'll see in all the 4 pictures, teachers have taken different approaches. The other lens that we keep while designing these micro improvements is the importance of continuity, that 1 + 1 doesn't limit you. It's the +1 + 1 + 1 leading to multiple micro improvements. And the teachers and school leaders realizing that they are the ones who are the owners of these change, and they can lead this. It's in their capacity to lead this. And how can they drive these continuously in the schools? Which is where Tavasilan sir's examples of reading mela, reading festival, addition, numeracy, PTMs, how to use TLMs, what TLMs make sense. All of these have been those +1s in the continuity. And that has been our approach in Nagaland. Just wanted to add that. I hope, Urush, I've only taken 2 minutes. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Shruti. And, we're so out of time. I'm handing it over to you, Rana, to give your closing remarks and maybe respond to some of the presentations. And thank you all for your wonderful presentations.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, from representing different parts of the world, different age groups, different sectors. They all count and they're all important because it's all about collaboration. And I look at, as I conclude in this session, I look at the remarks that were made and the challenges we're facing today as a scientist. Science helps inform us on how to observe, how to measure, and how to plan for the future. So, I mean, the problems that we're facing today in the 21st century, not natural disasters, wars, colicide that is happening today in Gaza, and many, many more. And we can't solve them with the same tools that created the problems. And we have to be very creative and very innovative. And that starts with decolonizing our minds. So that, why? Because if we are going to work local, we need to have trust in ourselves and have dignity and self-confidence that we can find the solutions we need for our local communities and go forward from that. And that means we need to foster agency, that feeling that I can and I have the capacity. We have a saying in Arabic that everyone is a guardian. And so drawing from that everyone is a guardian, that we can all hold responsibility to move forward. And what does that mean? That means that we need to reimagine what is education. What does it mean? How do we put the horse before the cart? And that means reimagining what is a learner, a lifelong learner, not to be restricted by time, boundaries. What is a school? What is the space of learning? That it could be anywhere and everywhere. Who is the instructor? It could be your grandmother, a teacher. So reimagining all these roles. And today is the time to do that, to do it together in equality and trust across the world. So we invite you to join Catalyst, because that's what we're doing at Catalyst. So we invite you to join from different sectors wherever you are and spread the word. We want you to comment. We want you to use the toolkit we've created in the guideline and tell us, does it work? Doesn't it work? How can we make it different so that we can learn from each other? And I will end by saying that I want to talk about the chaos theory, which is a theory in physics that when a butterfly flutters its wings, it moves the wind a centimeter, and that results in change beyond time and space that we can imagine. So I invite you to be the butterflies of change. Trust your gut feeling, trust who you are, your local wisdom, your ancient wisdom, and bring it to the table. And together, trusting each other, we can make a difference for the future generations and to take care of Earth as it is today. So thank you very much. And thank you, Catalyst, the team, Mishri, for making all of this happen. Have a great day. And please share with us what you are doing in the future going forward.
I want to end by thanking all our panelists. I think you actually, you were an example of what we meant by saying that how we need to collaborate together and work together to achieve, to transform education. Thank you for bringing the voices and the images of your students, your teachers, and all the communities you work with. And I think that's exactly it. And thank you for people from the ministries. I think you also showed what it means to work together with everyone. And if there's one thing that we're all taking away, and is what you mentioned, Fernando, and which is the goal of Catalyst 2030, that unless we all work together, and working together not just on the ground, but even at the policy designing level, the goal of Catalyst 2030 is to give space at the table to social entrepreneurs. They've been working at this for a long time. They have the ear of the community. They have great innovations. Governments should be taking those up. And that's the one way in which they can also reach the community that they want to serve. Thank you very much. And Olivier, thank you for being here. And thank you all for joining from wherever you are. And thanks very much. And together, let's make this.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Rana. You all are amazing.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.